When a famous dog went missing, he was in the right place at the right time. Don't we do everything possible to show our dogs how much we love them? Dogs are very special pets in that they show unconditional love towards us no matter what. To show our own love towards them, we do so many things to try to make them happy, even if it means sacrificing a bit of comfort. We don't mind giving them the best seat on the couch or even sharing that expensive cut of meat. But ask yourself this: would you go the extra mile for a dog if it wasn't yours? Miguel Camacho would. This is a story about a man from Florida who was studying hard for an exam that would change his life when he saw a world-famous dog in trouble. What do you think he did? Listen on and find out. Miguel Camacho had his calendar marked for months for November 8, 2018, because that was the day that he would be taking a test to see if he was ready to receive his journeyman electrician's license, a license that would be an enormous help to further his career. While he sat in the park studying for this exam, he felt so happy daydreaming about opportunities to get jobs that could help him provide for his family in a big way. Experts say that to best remember information when studying, one requires a few breaks to refresh and re-energize the brain, allowing them to renew their focus. Miguel felt it was time for a little break, so he pulled out his phone and started to scroll social media. As he scrolled down the feed, something in particular caught his attention. There was a viral video making its way through various social media channels that featured an adorable kite-surfing dog. This little Jack Russell Terrier really knew how to handle the board and fly the kite better than even most people. This amazing black and white Jack Russell Terrier is called Zeus. He belongs to the family of Dimitri Marimenides, his wife Helen Trotman, their daughter Olivia, and their 16-year-old son, Cameron. Together, the family would spend nearly every weekend at the beach surfing together. Cameron had quite the knack for kite surfing, having started as a young boy and honing his skills throughout his early teen years. Even from the tender age of 6 years old, everyone knew that he had the innate skills to become a professional kite surfer. Cameron was so good at kite surfing that he was recruited by Team USA to compete in the Summer 2020 Olympics. The good news was marred by a terrible incident that happened just a few days beforehand at the North Skyway Bridge competition. Zeus, who always accompanied the family on their surfing trips, was stolen. The Marimenides couldn't believe that in a split second with their backs turned, that their precious dog was stolen. Who would do such a cruel thing? The family hoped that with all their flyers and notices they put out, offering large rewards, someone would recognize Zeus and bring him home to his rightful owners. Miguel was scrolling down his social media feed and watching the amazing moves that Zeus the kite-surfing dog was pulling off with ease. He noticed that the latest video on the feed was posted by Cameron, pleading with anyone who recognized Zeus to please contact him. In the video, Cameron said the person who stole Zeus was a middle-aged white man driving a gray sedan. As sympathetic as Cameron's plea was, Miguel knew that there was probably no chance that anyone would find Zeus based on that extremely vague description alone. Miguel put his phone back in his pocket and reached down to pick up his books once more. It was right then that he caught in the corner of his eye a middle-aged white man in a gray sedan pulling up to the park. This was too much of a coincidence to be true, right? At first, it seemed like a strange coincidence that a second after he watched the video, the exact man in the description and car happened to pull up. Seriously, what are the chances that this was the man that Cameron identified as the thief? Still, Miguel kept an eye on the car that just pulled up. He had nothing to lose by keeping an eye out for Zeus. When Miguel saw Zeus getting out of the car soon after, he quickly called the number that Cameron left in the video. After Miguel described what the dog looked like to his owner, Cameron excitedly exclaimed, "Hey man, that's my dog!" Miguel assured Cameron that he would call the police right away. He became dismayed, however, when the police told him that there was nothing they could do unless the real owner was present. After a few minutes, Zeus jumped back into the gray sedan and the middle-aged man drove off. Miguel was in a bind because today was the day he was supposed to take his engineering test, but his conscience told him that he had a duty to save the dog from possible danger. He knew that he wouldn't have time to chase after the car and make it back in time for the exam, so he had to make a decision: the life of a dog or his chance to get ahead in his career. Miguel made a snap decision to follow the gray sedan that held Cameron's stolen dog. He knew it was a risk because not only would he almost surely miss his exam, but he had no idea if the man he was chasing was dangerous. After a few minutes of chase, the middle-aged man pulled over because he realized that someone was tailing him. When he got out, he ran over to Miguel's car and asked Miguel in an irritated voice, "Why are you following me?" Miguel answered him calmly by saying, "I don't think that's your dog." The middle-aged man was furious that he was being accused of dog theft and angrily replied, "Of course it is." Miguel thought of a way to determine if this was really the man who stole Cameron's dog. "Zeus," he called out. When Zeus heard his name, the dog immediately ran to Miguel. He quickly picked up the dog, put him in his car, and made a hasty getaway. The Marimenides couldn't believe their eyes when they saw their dog had been saved by a kind stranger. We're still pinching ourselves to see if we're dreaming. We're so fortunate Miguel was there and was willing to put himself into a possibly dangerous situation to get our dog back. Even though Miguel felt great that he returned the dog to his rightful owners, he was also very sad that he missed taking his engineering test. He knew that his absence for his final exam meant he would fail the class, which essentially quashed his hopes of becoming an engineer. Mr. Marimenides pulled out his wallet and promptly took out $3,500 in cash. He then approached Miguel to offer them reward money. Miguel had no idea that there was a reward for finding the stolen dog. He did it out of the kindness of his heart. He chose to save Zeus only because he felt it was the right thing to do. Nevertheless, Mr. Marimenides kept insisting that he take the money. Normally, Miguel wouldn't take it, but in this case he really needed it, especially considering he just lost out on a major career opportunity. Mr. Marimenides wouldn't take no for an answer when Miguel first refused the money. He was so grateful to this man for bringing the member of his family home. Miguel took the cash and told Zeus's owner that he was going to do with the money was, "I have 2 kids, Miguel said. I'm going to do some Christmas shopping for them and put the rest in their savings accounts." However, the story doesn't end there. When Miguel's professor heard about what Miguel had done, he was so impressed with the act of bravery that his student displayed. So, he offered Miguel another chance to take the test he'd missed. Miguel did what not many of us would do. He was faced with a difficult decision: to do what was right and put his future career and family in jeopardy, or to take the test and leave the dog in harm's way. He didn't do it for reward or for the praise, rather he did it because it was important for him, regardless of the cost, to bring happiness to a family that just had their dog stolen. This amazing story helps restore the faith in humanity by showing there are really good people out there who care about doing the right thing, regardless of the cost. For a family in North Carolina, faith was the only thing they could rely on. The Miller family just lost their North Carolina home to a disaster. With Christmas fast approaching, the family had no idea what they were going to do for the holiday. The Millers' house was destroyed when Hurricane Florence ravaged the East Coast in 2017. Despite the tragedy, the family didn't give up hope and firmly decided to rebuild. Jacob and Jamie Miller felt it was a good time to take the family on vacation as a respite from the chaos going on. Their extended family invited the Millers to Salt Lake City to spend the holidays together with the rest of the family. As they were traveling by plane, the Millers' German Shepherd puppy Frank stayed behind with Grandma Miller. The Millers were happy to celebrate their holidays with the rest of the family. But the 2 Miller boys, Perrin and Rainer, were also sad that Jack wasn't with them for the celebrations. Shortly after the Millers landed in Salt Lake City, their oldest son, Perrin, felt intense pressure in his head and complained about painful headaches. Perrin's worried parents rushed him to the hospital right away. Perrin underwent numerous tests to determine what was causing immense pains in his head. The 8-year-old really wished his good friend Jack was there at his side for the frightening period. What happened next is every parent's worst nightmare. After a myriad of complicated tests, the doctors diagnosed their 8-year-old son. The results of the test showed that Perrin had a deadly tumor in his brain. The doctors diagnosed Perrin with a stage 4 glioblastoma multiforme, a deadly form of cancer. Their worst nightmare had become a reality for Jacob and Jamie. Their son had a life-threatening tumor that could kill him at any moment. Despite the black cloud hanging overhead, Jacob and Jamie Miller wouldn't go down without a fight. Perrin's parents gave one last kiss to their terrified son before he was rushed to emergency surgery. Jacob and Jamie promised that Jack would be there right after he got out. After a terrifying few hours, the surgeon came out to tell parents' the good news. They had successfully removed the cancerous tumor. The surgeon cautioned the relieved parents that although the immediate threat was neutralized, it would take a long time for Perrin to get back to full health. Post-surgery, Perrin had to follow a rigorous schedule of chemotherapy and radiation to eradicate any remaining cancer cells. With no house to return to, the Millers had to stay in Salt Lake City while their son was undergoing treatment. Like every parent, the Millers did whatever it took to make their son feel comfortable and safe throughout the difficult times that lay ahead. The parents took a leave of absence from work so they could be by Perrin's side. They also knew that one important family member needed to come up to Salt Lake City. Frank was living with Perrin's grandmother in North Carolina ever since the Millers went up to Salt Lake City for the holidays. The Millers knew that no one could bring more comfort to their ailing son than his dog. They researched how much it would cost to bring Frank up to Salt Lake City. The cheapest rate they found was $3,600. Between the costs of the medical bills, relocating costs, and the money lost during John and Jamie's leave of absence from work, they didn't know how they would come up with that money. Perrin's grandmother came up with an idea that just might work. She knew that the community kindly chipped in for the reconstruction of the Millers' destroyed house. So she thought that maybe she could appeal to the community to contribute to another important cause. Perrin's grandmother posted on her Facebook page about anyone knowing a cost-effective way to transfer Jack back to Salt Lake City to be with her sick grandchild. Little did she know the post went viral. Read by hundreds of people, one couple in Wisconsin who read the post knew they had to do something about it. Jennifer Reynolds, who read the post, shared the story with her husband Rob, a former truck driver, and there was no hesitation on Rob's part after he heard the story. Rob notified Perrin's grandmother that he would bring the dog back to his family on his own dime. The next day, Rob packed up his Subaru Outback to pick up Jack and bring him back to his owners in Salt Lake City. Even though the drive from Ladysmith, Wisconsin to North Carolina would be 20 hours, Rob had no qualms because he knew it was the right thing to do. He eventually reached Grandma Miller's home to pick up Jack. It was going to be another long ride to Salt Lake City, but Rob was happy that not only was he doing the right thing, but that he also had a great travel companion for the tedious journey. The trip from Grandma Miller's home to Salt Lake City was going to take 2,300 miles. On the way, Rob posted updates about his trip on Facebook. Rob was so happy to have such a great companion for the long drive. He posted on Facebook, "Frank and I get along very well. He would sleep or play with his toys, we'd stop and go for walks. If he wanted to use the bathroom, he'd bump my right arm. He was perfect." Rob and Jack were having so much fun on their road trip that he offered the Millers to drive Frank back when the Millers returned to North Carolina. Though after a 52-hour drive, he wouldn't have minded if they took up his offer after he got a nap. Rob and Frank reached the Millers' home on a snowy January the 5th on 2019. Even though no one was outside, Frank knew that the Millers were home, so he ran straight to the front door. Rob approached the door and rang the doorbell in anticipation. He was tired after a 52-hour drive, but felt alert that the moment Frank would be reunited with his family had arrived. When the Millers answered the door, Rob knew right away that he made the right decision to bring the dog home. Perrin's face lit up when Jack came into his room and gave him a lick on the nose. It had been so long since the boy who was going through so much had his best friend with him. Perrin said, "I felt really excited to see Frank. I just really like Frank and he's a good dog." Jacob couldn't stop thanking Rob for his selfless gesture. Jacob said, "It's been a whirlwind, it's been hard, but it's been overwhelmingly awesome at the same time." Rob brought a smile and comfort to the faces of the Millers and their ailing son. Rob didn't do it for money or for honor, but just to bring joy to a family that was going through so much. With a family back together, the Millers knew that with faith, their son would get better.